hip-hop artist and designer Kanye West is rapidly losing support over a series of anti-Semitic comments.
The move costing Ye his billionaire status. His net worth dropped to $400 million after Adidas dropped him.
How could the richest black man ever be humbled other than to be made to not be a billionaire in front of everyone off of one comment?
Well, that one comment has caused the world to come crashing down on Kanye West, also known as Ye. The hip-hop star is in enormous trouble after making disparaging remarks about Jewish people, claiming they had exploited him and other famous African Americans for years. His accusations were called anti-Semitic, hate speech, and some even accused him of threatening to kill Jews. As a result, almost every single business associated with him, including Adidas and Gap, have cut ties with the artist, costing him an estimated $2 billion. It is a very sensitive story with lots of claims and counterclaims, so here's a quick reminder of how we got here.
Kanye West.
Kanye West.
Kanye West, one of the most famous and influential artists in the world, has been causing global outrage.
Companies are severing ties with Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West.
Kanye has been problematic in terms of his rhetoric for a very long time.
Until recently, Kanye was reported to be the richest black man in America ever, with a fortune of over $6 billion. And although that title was always disputed, he was certainly one of only a handful of black billionaires in America. In the past couple of weeks, though, the 47-year-old has lost so much of his fortune that he's probably no longer a member of this exclusive club.
In Christianity, we don't say karma, we say you reap what you sow. And I feel like this is God humbling me right now.
If God is humbling Kanye, he's using some of the world's biggest brands to do it. Adidas, Gap, Balenciaga, they have all cut ties with Kanye. Apple is limiting access to his music, and his talent agency CAA, the world's biggest, has dropped him as a client. Meanwhile, Twitter and Instagram locked his accounts, for a while at least. Even a visit to Skechers went disastrously wrong.
He showed up uninvited at the Skechers store in Manhattan Beach and was promptly kicked out of the building.
All of this is feeding the satirists who have taken the chance to add insult to injury.
It took Adidas so many days to decide not to work with them. I mean, he walked in and we were like, bye, bye-bye, door.
So why then have these companies and Silicon Valley turned on one of their biggest earners? It wasn't because he said, outrageously, slavery is a choice, or because he claimed that George Floyd died of a drugs overdose. It has little to do with how he offended many of his fellow African Americans. It has got everything to do with his incendiary remarks about Jews.
What he is saying is it's just...
It's full of hate. I mean, there's no way around it.
It's terrible. It's terrible, and I don't even want to repeat it all.
This whole saga began when fellow rapper P. Diddy criticized Ye for wearing a White Lives Matter t-shirt in a fashion show.
I will always support my brother. Kanye is a free thinker, but the White Lives Matter t-shirt, I don't rock with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not with it.
Ye hit back by suggesting that Diddy was controlled by Jews, texting him, "I'm going to use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me." Having uploaded that message to Instagram, Ye switched to Twitter to say, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Now, Ye subsequently said he meant to use the word def, meaning defense and not death. But this clarification came too late. Twitter and Instagram locked his accounts, and many in the mainstream media, including one of CNN's Jewish anchors, Jake Tapper, expressed their disgust.
Kanye wasn't blocked from Twitter and Instagram because he challenged critical race theory or vaccine mandates. It was because he threatened to kill Jews.
With the mainstream media uniformly against Kanye, the beleaguered hip-hop star mounted his own defense on conservative TV and with channels on YouTube.
Are the people, the Jewish businessmen that led me to that place, are they sorry for the way they've raped my
I don't know who you're talking about in particular, but I don't know why you keep having to say
And
they're
by the way,
Jewish.
you wouldn't-
What is the
but you
fact they're Jewish got to do with anything? Why do you keep doing that?
What do you mean? They're the Jewish businessmen that did that because
They're business
they are.
people.
That's what they did.
Why do you keep saying Jewish business people?
90% of black people in entertainment, from sports to music to acting, are in some way tied into Jewish business people.
It's a person, not Jewish. Let me just say one thing.
But they are, though. That's the only thing. It just so happens that they are.
Despite Ye's attempt to explain his position, it's very unlikely his former business partners are going to reconcile with him anytime soon, which Kanye says proves his point exactly.
What's happening right now is I'm being humbled. Another thing that's happening is by me being burned to the flesh every single day, it's actually proving what I had to say.
As we just heard in that report, he tweeted he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. He says what he actually meant to say was DEFCON 3, which, if you look it up, is a US military term meaning a heightened defense level. Ye says he just spelt it incorrectly and he has apologized.
I will say I'm sorry for the people that I hurt with the DEFCON, the confusion that I call. I feel like I cause hurt and confusion. And I'm sorry for the families of the people that had nothing to do with the trauma that I had been through.
Well, even though he's apologized for that specific tweet, Ye maintains that he is making some legitimate complaints, which he will continue to make no matter the cost to him. His main points are, in his words, Jewish people run Hollywood, the music industry, and much of the sports industry. He alleges that Jewish businessmen have exploited him and many other African-American stars over the years. And he claims that, again, in his words, the Jewish media profit from the so-called trauma economy by focusing their coverage as much as they did on George Floyd and BLM, while ignoring all the black-on-black murders in cities like Chicago. So what evidence does Ye put forward to support his allegations? Well, it's not very broad. In fact, he mostly draws from his own experience.
I'm calling the industry out and saying, like, hey, it just so happens that there's been times where I had my lawyer was Jewish, my regulator was Jewish, but like 8 people that basically would collude and talk without me were in groups saying, okay, this is what the tour is going to be. This is his next house. And they were making all these decisions and they're making all this money. And at the end, I was like, I ended my tour and I don't have the money.
Now, in all these interviews that Ye has been giving, he's often asked why he doesn't just complain about specific businessmen who have allegedly exploited him. Why does he have to smear the entire Jewish people? Here's his explanation.
I've been wronged so many times by Jewish businessmen. And the reason why I say people, if a black man is caught in the car with drugs or a gun, and there's 3 other black guys in the car with him, guess what? They're all going to jail. So the reason why I say people is I want those businessmen's wives and fathers, mothers, grandmothers, and kids to ask them, why is Ye so mad at us? Because they're taking money out of my children's mouths and putting it into their children's mouths.
Okay, let's bring in our guest now, and I'm joined by Wilfred Reilly, who is an expert on hate crimes. He says Ye is being anti-Semitic, but probably doesn't deserve to be cancelled. We also have Jesse Kornbuth, a journalist for many, many years, who believes Ye's comments only serve to encourage anti-Semitism, which is on the rise in America anyway. And finally, we have Dean Crutchfield, a brand management expert who says Adidas and the others had no choice but to cut ties with Ye. Welcome to The Nexus, all 3 of you. Wilfred, I'd like to start with you. I think that there is no question that what Ye had to say in both written and in spoken form is anti-Semitic. He's even admitted it himself on multiple occasions. That's not the question. The question is, does the punishment reflect the severity of the crime? Was it right for Adidas and all the others to cancel him?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. So I didn't necessarily say that I think it's bad that he was canceled. What I said is that you pretty frequently see a double standard around sort of cancelable speech. So I think if Ye had simply said what he did about white Americans overall, for example, he probably would not have been canceled. The Root has an annual series called the Becky Awards, where they break down the most quote unquote offensive, annoying whites in the USA. So I think there's certain kinds of speech that targets groups seen as still currently oppressed, for example, that is punished more harshly. And that standard's pretty significant and is visible here in the USA, in this country. So obviously, if Kanye West had been a Caucasian guy who said similar things about blacks, you would have seen a similar response. So the response was pretty striking. Obviously, the comments themselves, I'm going DEFCON 3 on them Jews, you know, his getting up from table with Piers Morgan, Adidas can't cancel me for being anti-Semitic, were pretty idiotic. The question is whether the punishment, if you will, is kind of suitable.
And so
I think that's an interesting question.
Is,
I don't think you would have...
Wilfred, the punishment is that he's now gone from being one of a handful of African-American billionaires in the United States to being outside that group. He's lost, it's hard to estimate, but perhaps as much as $2 billion because of his tweets and his remarks. Do you think that is excessive or is it appropriate?
I think that $2 billion, and that is an upper end estimate, but in response to him saying, I'm going DEFCON, which is a misspelling. He's saying DEFCON on a group of people is a remarkable punishment. And I can't help but contrast it with almost anything else he could have said. If, as a rapper, he had said, I'm going to kill 5 other black men, if outside of a few contexts that are currently taboo, he had said something equally idiotic, nothing would have happened. So the question is really about standards of speech. I don't think anyone on the panel is defending Kanye as a brilliant and insightful man when it comes to his takes on race relations. The question, and I'd be interested in the brand management executive's comments here, but the question is, when do you have to take quote unquote action like this? Is it ever necessary? $2 billion is a lot of money for some guy clowning around on Twitter.
I'd love to bring in Jesse Kornbuth at this point. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here?
Absolutely. Absolutely fits the crime. The world is a marketplace. Advertisers and customers make decisions. This decision has been made. This is offensive, and no one wishes to be associated with it.
Well, I wonder, was it the marketplace that meted out this punishment, or was it people like Ari Emanuel? Because he wrote, he's a very powerful, for those of our viewers who don't know Ari Emanuel, he is the CEO of Endeavor, which is a vast entertainment agency, and he wrote in the Financial Times, it's not enough for Twitter to lock the rapper Kanye West out of his accounts. Apple and Spotify, which host West music, whoever organizes West tours, and Adidas, which collaborates with West on his fashion line, should all stop working with him. The parent company of Parler, the Twitter competitor, should refuse to sell to West. It allows forms of hatred and racism, including anti-Semitism, to spread and become normalized. So is it the marketplace of ideas, as it were, or is it powerful people like Ari Emanuel telling businesses in an open fashion they must cut ties with him?
Look, Adidas' own employees said, we do not support this. This is not a Jew telling anybody anything. This is obvious. It is completely justified.
How will we ever know what other types of employees further down the chain will actually make of this? I mean, you're saying it's justified based on what employees say. What do African-American employees say? Do we know?
We don't know, but it's been condemned widely. I can't believe we're talking about this as if there's any ambiguity.
Oh, we're not. I mean, we're saying right from the beginning it is anti-Semitic. We all say that. Ye himself says that. What we're saying is, does the punishment fit the crime? Now, Wilfred Reilly brought up a very interesting point about double standards. He said, had Kanye or Ye said this about white people, it would have gone almost unremarked. Can I just show you an example of where this has actually happened? Let's have a listen to Dave Chappelle, one of the great American comedians, talking about how he was exploited in his contract.
And you sit down at a table and you do the contract game. And that's how I got with Comedy Central. I signed the contract. But I signed the contract The way that a 28-year-old expectant father that was broke signs a contract. I was desperate. I needed a way out, and it wasn't good money, and it wasn't good circumstances, but what else am I gonna do, I said. And all these white people sitting at that table told me, trust us, Dave, it's a good contract. And I looked around the table, and they all seemed to agree it was a good contract. But what if it was like that game of three-card Monte? What if they were all friends and I didn't know it?
Jesse, after Dave Chappelle made those remarks about white people, he wasn't cancelled. Had he made those remarks about Jewish people, do you think he would have been, or there would have been calls for him to be cancelled?
Dave Chappelle is an entertainer. He's not selling sneakers. The fabulous irony here is that Adidas has 20 to 30,000 pairs of shoes that they cannot sell. And Balenciaga has a whole bunch of clothes. And the irony is that these will be sold for pennies to discounters, and then they'll probably be moved to the third world and to Asia, where there's not much consciousness of this, and we will see Kanye's stuff on black and brown people. Fabulous irony, don't you think?
Well, anybody else is here on the panel is welcome to pick up that point. If not, listen, Wilfred, you're not the first person to make the accusation about double standards. There's quite a few African Americans online, including Ernest Owens, who wrote, "Fact, before Kanye West was the face of anti-Semitism, he was one of the hip-hop faces of misogynoir, anti-blackness, Trumpism, and slavery denial. And you all gave him contracts, documentaries, endorsements, clothing deals, and millions that became billions." Dean Crutchfield, why didn't these big companies cut links with Kanye or Ye when he was making negative remarks about George Floyd and BLM and wearing White Lives Matter T-shirts, which is, according to BLM, essentially a white supremacist slogan?
I think that basically the Ye brand is very much controversial and outlandish, and he's made a career out of doing it from his lyrics, his music. He's a talented artist, millions of adoring fans for what was, some amazing music and very standout opinions. I think the difference here is that these are brands that have a purpose and values, and they have morality clauses in all their deals with sponsors and major stars, and he crossed the line, and it basically breached their morality clause.
But where is the line, Dean? Dean, the immorality clause that you've mentioned, why was that not drawn, that line, when he was antagonizing many, many African Americans?
Well, if I was on your show now and I said white men are bad, am I racist?
You might be a bit of a generalization.
Yeah,
sure.
To some extent.
The person speaking about their own race. It was wrong. It was outrageous. I wouldn't condone it. What I'm saying is he obviously feels he had license to make those comments.
Wilfred, come in.
If we look at BLM, the movement's amazing, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a lot of good stuff there, but just briefly, I think obviously if you say white men are bad, that is a racist comment in any classical sense of the term, genetically based dislike of a group, so on down the line. I think that the core point I'm making here is that there is some biased speech that we quite frankly allow. African American rappers are allowed to say allowed, quote unquote, to say almost anything imaginable about, say, black women or white people in the conventional sense of that term. Whites are certainly allowed to criticize one another. The question here is Kanye West, by quote unquote crossing a line and talking about another group that has suffered, did he go too far? And I think the double standard, whether you support it or defend it, is really, support it or oppose it, is really pretty glaring here. A final comment. The question as read the marketplace, I don't think anyone disagrees that Adidas has the right, whether or not they should have made that business move, to terminate Ye. The question is how much you give in to activists beyond that. Do third-party players like Twitter, who don't have contracts with Kanye, have some kind of duty to ban him because of activist complaints? And that's where I would frankly say no, whether the comments were about blacks, whites, Jews of all colors, whatnot.
Jesse, I'd like you to come in. I can tell you need to hear.
If I could just jump in here. At one level, this is a mental health issue. Kanye West is sick. He's bipolar. He has borderline personality disorder, or God knows what he has. He's way off his meds. He said he's not sleeping. This is a recipe for disaster. What is fascinating is that there is no one in his life who can get to him and get him to stop. And this is the sadness. You know, there are many people who have these afflictions. They don't automatically go into anti-Semitism. This is all his. This is unleashed in him. And until he is stopped, until he has a total breakdown, he is going to do everything he can to bankrupt himself.
Now, to play devil's advocate, or perhaps Kanye's advocate, he has said, and he's addressed this issue very, very explicitly. He said he does not suffer from bipolar disorder and that a doctor misdiagnosed him when he was exhausted, and it is exactly that diagnosis which will be used against him to reduce and belittle what he has said. He contends that he is speaking in a very lucid fashion, and he absolutely means what he says. Anyway, it's for the audience to decide, I suppose. Can I just ask about Kanye's point? Because he's often complained that his anti-Semitism is what grabs all the headlines, but his actual complaint is ignored. Now, a very sensitive subject, but he's not the first person, is he, to say that Hollywood and the entertainment industry is controlled by Jews. In fact, we have Joel Steen writing for the Los Angeles Times in December 2008. Here's what he says. I have never been so upset by a poll in my life. Only 22% of Americans now believe the movie and television industries are pretty much run by Jews, down from nearly 50% in 1964. The Anti-Defamation League, which released the poll results last month, sees in these numbers a victory against stereotyping. Actually, it shows how dumb America has gotten. Jews totally run Hollywood. Now, he then goes on to list all the Hollywood executives who are Jewish, and he pretty much comes up with 100%. Jesse Kornbuth, I mean, what do you say to this? Is it ever wrong to point out these statistics? Or is it always wrong to point out these statistics?
You know, the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures opened last year, and it didn't have any mention of the Jews who founded Hollywood. And yet the director is a Jew. You know, this is huge furor, and they've now had to correct it with we meant to get to this. The point is, when was the last time you heard Michael Jordan complain about anything at Nike? Or, Black people work with Jews all the time in Hollywood. The biggest movie of last year was a Black feature. So I'm not understanding the basic idea here, which is that Jews founded the motion picture industry because they had no other avenue that would particularly welcome them in creative ways. They couldn't go to Wall Street. They couldn't go into a lot of businesses. They gravitated to Hollywood. It's a big so what? That's history.
Dean Crutchfield, on a sort of final question, really, you're an expert in brands. It would appear that Kanye, or Ye, has destroyed his image, his brand, for good. Or do you see any way back for him?
Well, I think this is a crisis management situation of epic proportion, where most businesses and people go wrong in crises is that they deny, delay, defect, and defend. And that's a problem. You know, crisis management is about hide nothing and tell all, and that's not being done here. In fact, lots of excuses and dilly-dallying to actually defend himself and his opinion. So that's incorrect. He's basically wrecked his personal brand, he's destroyed the Yeezy brand, and he's collapsed his wealth. So basically, he's suffering the consequences of making outrageous remarks. So ultimately, I can't see any business or brand wanting to associate with Kanye West ever again. So coming back from this is going to be extremely hard to do. And basically, to Jesse's point and his daughter wearing Yeezy shoes, who's going to want to wear them? You know, what's that brand now associated with? What's he associated with? So this is extremely damaging. Like I said, it's a chronic crisis, and it's been badly done by his management team and by himself. So no, I don't think there's any comeback.
Dean Crutchfield, Jesse Kornbuth, and Wilfred Reilly, thank you all very much for your contributions to The Nexus today. Much appreciated, and thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Remember, if you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus TRT World. Until next week then, goodbye.